I've always liked visiting small towns on weekends. Quiet roads, friendly faces, and old bars where people still play rock music on jukeboxes. But there's one night I'll never forget. And I swear to you, what happened still haunts me. This happened 2 years ago, during a solo road trip through rural Pennsylvania. It was a Friday night, and after hours of driving, I found myself in a tiny town called Elk Hollow. Population, maybe 500. No gas station, no hotels. Just one main street and an old bar with a neon sign that read, "The Hollow Tap." I was tired, hungry, and needed a drink. So, I parked and walked in. It was dimly lit, smelled like wood and old beer, and had maybe 6 people inside. The bartender, an older man with cloudy eyes, greeted me with a nod. "Just passing through?" he asked. "Yeah. Long drive." He handed me a beer and said, "Stay long enough, you'll see what this town is really like." He smiled, but something about it felt wrong. Like he was hiding something behind that grin. I took a seat at the far end of the bar and started drinking. That's when I noticed the mirrors behind the bar. They weren't normal. The reflection of the room didn't match what was happening. For example, in the mirror, the guy 2 seats down from me wasn't talking or laughing like in real life. He just sat still, staring straight ahead with pitch-black eyes. I blinked. Looked again. Back to normal. Maybe I was just tired. The music from the jukebox stopped suddenly. Every head turned toward the back hallway of the bar, where the restrooms were. No one said a word. "New guy should go check," the man next to me whispered. I laughed nervously. "Check what?" "The girl screaming," he said. I hadn't heard anything, but just then I did. A faint, muffled cry coming from the hallway. It sounded like a woman in pain, or worse, terror. I looked around. Nobody moved. They just stared at me, waiting. So like an idiot, I stood up and walked toward the hallway. It got colder with every step. The bar's warmth disappeared. The lights above flickered, and my footsteps echoed too loudly on the wooden floor. I opened the bathroom door. No one inside. Then I noticed another door at the end of the hall, a dark, metal one that looked like it didn't belong in a bar at all. Like it belonged in a basement. The cries were louder now. I put my hand on the doorknob. It felt like ice. I opened it. A narrow stairway led down into pitch blackness. The crying suddenly stopped. Now, any normal person would have turned around. But something pulled me in. Not physically, but emotionally. I felt drawn to whatever was down there. I stepped down slowly, using my phone's flashlight. The walls were damp, moldy. It smelled like rot and wet dirt. Halfway down, I heard breathing. Not mine. Heavy, wet breathing, like someone, or something, was waiting at the bottom. I froze. And then the crying started again. Closer this time. I reached the bottom and found nothing. Just a dirt room. No girl. No furniture. Just darkness and that same heavy breathing behind me. I turned around and my flashlight caught something in the corner. It was a woman. Pale skin. Eyes rolled back. Lips moving, but no sound. I stepped closer. That's when her mouth opened wide. Far too wide, and a scream erupted so loud I dropped my phone. Everything went black. I tried to run up the stairs, but something grabbed my leg. I kicked, screamed, climbed as fast as I could. When I burst out the hallway door, the bar was empty. No bartender. No people. No music. Nothing. Even the mirrors behind the bar were gone. Just black walls. I ran outside. But the town was gone. I swear to God, gone. No buildings. No lights. Just pitch black woods all around me. My car wasn't there either. Just gravel and trees. I stood there, heart pounding, confused, terrified. Then I turned back, and the bar was gone too. Just trees. I walked for what felt like hours through the woods until I found a highway. A passing truck driver picked me up around dawn. When I told him about Elk Hollow, he gave me a strange look. "There ain't no Elk Hollow round here," he said. "Not in this state, at least." I checked maps, searched the internet. No records of the town. No bar. Nothing. It's like it never existed. But it did. Because even now, I still wake up some nights hearing that scream from the basement. And sometimes, when I look in mirrors, I still see that version of myself in the hollow tap bar, still sitting at the counter, staring with pitch black eyes. Like a part of me never left. Let me tell you about the most terrifying night of my life. It happened last winter when I was driving back home from a business trip. I had been on the road for almost 8 hours, and it was snowing hard. I didn't want to keep driving in that weather, so I decided to find a small town and get some rest. I came across a little place called Red Pine. Quiet, almost too quiet. Most of the stores were closed, and the streets were empty. But there was one building that still had lights on, a small bar called Eli's Tavern. I figured I'd go in, have a drink, maybe warm up before looking for a motel. It looked old, like it hadn't changed in 50 years. I pushed the heavy wooden door open and stepped inside. A small fireplace lit one corner of the room. A few people were there, all sitting in silence. No music, no TVs. Just the crackle of the fire and the clinking of glasses. The bartender, a middle-aged woman with short gray hair, nodded at me. "Cold night," she said. "Yeah," I replied. "Just passing through." I sat at the bar and ordered a whiskey. That's when I noticed him. A man was sitting at the far end of the bar, all by himself. He had a dark coat, a hat pulled low over his face, and his hands were covered in black leather gloves. Something about him felt off. He wasn't drinking. He wasn't even moving. Just sitting, perfectly still, staring straight ahead. I looked around, expecting someone else to notice how strange he looked. But nobody seemed to care. Or maybe they were pretending not to. "Is he okay?" I asked the bartender quietly, nodding toward the man. She didn't look up. "Best not to bother him," she whispered. I felt a chill run down my back. I took a few sips of my drink, trying to ignore him. But every time I glanced in his direction, I felt like he was watching me, even though his head never moved. After about 20 minutes, I stood up to go to the restroom. The hallway was narrow and dark. I did what I needed to do and returned, but when I stepped back into the bar, I froze. Everyone was gone. Every stool was empty. No bartender. No fireplace light. Just the man at the end of the bar, still sitting there. I turned to leave, thinking maybe I had stayed longer than I thought and the bar had closed. But the door was gone. In its place was just a black wall. My heart started pounding. "Hello," I called out. "Is anyone here?" No response. I looked back at the man, and this time, he was standing. He had moved. I took a step back. Something was very wrong. "Did you like the drink?" he asked in a low, cold voice. I couldn't speak. "You shouldn't have come here," he said. "Now you can't leave." I ran toward where the door had been, slamming my hands against the wall, trying to find any way out. But it was just solid black wood. I turned, and the man was closer. I didn't see him move. 1 second he was far, the next he was 10 feet away. I backed into a table and grabbed a stool, holding it in front of me like a shield. "Please," I begged. "What do you want?" He tilted his head. "You shouldn't have looked at me." The lights in the bar flickered, and suddenly I saw flashes, quick, terrifying images in the dark. People screaming, faces melting, blood on the floor. I blinked and it was gone. The man stepped closer. I could finally see his face, and I wish I never had. His skin looked stretched, thin like paper. His eyes were hollow, black pits. His mouth was a long, dark slit that seemed to grow wider when he smiled. "You're one of us now," he whispered. I screamed. Then everything went black. I woke up the next morning on the side of the road. My car was parked nearby. Snow covered the ground. I was freezing and confused. My phone was dead, and my watch said it was 6:30 a.m. I drove straight to the nearest gas station and asked the clerk if he knew about Eli's Tavern in Red Pine. He stared at me like I was crazy. "There's no bar in Red Pine," he said. "Hasn't been for 30 years. Burned down in the 90s. Everyone inside died." I laughed nervously. "No, it was open last night. I was there." The man frowned and pulled out his phone. He showed me a photo from an old news article. The headline read, "Local bar fire kills 7, mysterious cause unsolved." It was Eli's Tavern, and at the very end of the group photo was a man in a dark coat and black gloves. The same man I saw that night. I don't know what happened to me. Maybe I imagined it. Maybe I dreamed it. But deep down, I know what I saw was real. Something trapped me there. Something evil. Now, I never drink alone. I never stop in small towns. And I never, ever go into a bar that looks too quiet. Because some places never really close. My name is Oliver, and what I'm about to share still haunts me every time I step into a bar. This happened to me 2 years ago, but I remember every detail like it happened last night. People don't believe me when I tell them, but I swear, it's real. I was traveling alone for work, driving through a quiet town in northern Colorado. It was already 10:30 p.m., and I was exhausted. I hadn't eaten all day and just wanted something warm, maybe a drink before heading to a motel. That's when I saw it, the Stag's Horn. A small, wooden bar on the corner of an empty street. No other businesses were open. Just that one bar. It had this old, rustic look with a sign that swung in the wind. A red neon open light buzzed faintly in the window. I should have trusted my gut, but I didn't. I parked and went inside. The place was dimly lit, mostly by orange-yellow hanging lamps. The wooden floor creaked under my boots. It was surprisingly quiet, almost too quiet. There were only 3 other people in the whole place. 2 men playing cards at a table near the back and 1 woman sitting alone near the jukebox. The bartender looked up as I entered. He was tall, bald, and had a thick beard. His name tag read Gus. "Just passing through?" he asked. "Yeah," I said. "Long day. Just need something to relax." He smiled and poured me a whiskey. I sat at the bar and sipped slowly, looking around. The walls were covered with old hunting photos and mounted deer antlers. I couldn't shake the feeling that I was being watched, not by the people, but by something in the bar itself. "Is this place always this quiet?" I asked. Gus didn't answer. He just nodded toward a clock on the wall. It was 11:11. "We don't get many after 11, he said. "Most people know not to come this late." I gave a nervous chuckle. "Why's that?" Gus stared at me for a second too long, then walked into the back room without answering. The woman near the jukebox stood up and walked out the front door. Now it was just me and the card players. That's when the door locked itself behind her. I heard the click. I turned around and saw the clock had stopped ticking. Still 11:11. I called out, "Hey, Gus?" The door. The two men stopped playing cards. One of them slowly looked up and said, "You shouldn't have come in." My stomach dropped. I stood up, ready to leave, but the door was gone. Not locked. Gone. Where the door had been was now just a flat wooden wall with no handle, no frame, nothing. "Okay, is this some kind of joke?" I asked, backing away. The other man at the card table whispered, "You're in it now." The lights dimmed. The air felt heavy, like the pressure dropped suddenly. Then I heard it, a soft creaking sound, like something crawling across the ceiling beams above me. I looked up and saw a shadow moving across the ceiling. It didn't have a clear shape. It twisted and pulsed like smoke, but had long, finger-like arms that stretched toward the bar. I ran to the back, thinking maybe there was an emergency exit. I slammed through the door Gus had gone through earlier and found myself in a hallway that seemed way too long for a small bar. I started walking fast. Doors lined both sides of the hallway, but every time I tried to open one, it was locked or led back to the bar. Every turn I took, every shortcut I tried, I kept ending up in the same place. The bar. Except now it looked different. The lights were all off. The tables were flipped. The deer antlers on the walls were dripping blood. And Gus. He was standing behind the bar again. But he wasn't the same. His eyes were completely black, no whites at all. His beard was gone, and his mouth stretched way too wide, inhuman. "Last call," he said, and his voice echoed like it came from a deep cave. I screamed and turned to run, but the card players were in front of me. Their faces were twisted, their skin pale and dry like paper. One of them reached out with bony fingers. "You saw it," he whispered. "Now you belong to it." The shadow returned, this time from the floor. It rose like thick fog, wrapping around my legs. I couldn't breathe. I couldn't even scream anymore. All I could do was think, this is how I die. In some haunted bar no one will ever find. But then I remembered something. The woman by the jukebox. Before she left, she pressed a song. The jukebox was still lit up in the corner. I stumbled toward it, fighting the shadow pulling me back. I slammed my hand on the same song, House of the Rising Sun. As the first notes played, everything froze. The air stilled. The shadow shrank back. The lights flickered on, and I collapsed. I woke up in my car, parked outside the bar. Morning light shone through the windshield. The bar behind me, boarded up. Dusty windows, a for sale sign, and no sign of life. It hadn't been open in years. I drove straight to the nearest town and asked about the Stag's Horn. The clerk at the gas station told me it had closed down after a fire killed several people inside, including the bartender named Gus. I showed him a photo I had secretly snapped during my drink. I often take random pictures while traveling. He went pale. "That's Gus," he said. "You say he served you a drink? That man's been dead for over 10 years. I don't tell this story to scare people. I tell it because some places hold on to death like a memory. And if you're unlucky like me, you might walk right into it. If you ever see a lonely little bar late at night, glowing with warm lights while the rest of the town sleeps, keep driving. Because sometimes last call means exactly that."